Okay, so today's class is on topic 4, which is lenses and vision. So we're going to look at types of lenses. So what is a lens, first of all? So it's a curved piece of transparent material, usually glass or plastic. So basically light, it will refract as it passes through a lens, causing the rays to bend. So the first one we'll talk about is the concave lens. So this type of a lens, it's thinner and flatter in the middle than around the edges. So what we're seeing down here is a double concave lens. All right, so we can see that cave-like feature of concave lens. So what we see here, we have the light coming in and it's being spread out as it leaves the lens, all right? So this type of lens, this double concave lens, we can see what's happening as the light enters and then light is leaving, it's diverging or spreading out. All right, so it causes refracting light rays to diverge or spread out. And then here we have a convex lens. So this type of lens is thicker in the middle than around the edges. So much thicker in the middle than the edges. So this type of lens causes refracting light rays to converge. Converge means to come together. So we have the light rays coming in. It's going through the lens. It's refracting. And they are now coming together. All right, so notice the two comparisons there. When we have the double concave lens, the light rays are spreading out, they are diverging, and then when we have a double convex lens, the light rays come together, they're converging. Lenses and images. So lenses are useful, especially for optical devices, right? Like eyeglasses and so on. So an image is going to form where the light rays from an object converge, okay, where they come together. Light rays, they spread out from points on the object, and then a convex lens, they refract these rays so that they come back together. So here in this diagram, we see a convex lens. This one's with a smaller curve. We see the light rays converging. This lens here is a convex lens with a larger curve. So it is still converging, but just farther away. Sometimes images that are formed by a double convex lens, they're sometimes inverted rather than upright. And what's happening is the lens, it's directing light from the left portion of the object to the right portion of the image. So if you follow these arrows, we can see that the light from the top of the object is being directed to the bottom of the image. So notice this arrow here, and it's being directed down here. All right. So usually this is usually used in, for example, film projectors and overhead projectors. They'll use this double convex lens to create images. All right, but they are here inverted or upside down. So the lens in the human eye, it is a convex lens, and the lens, it's taking the light rays from objects, and then by refraction, it's going to focus them or bring them back to a point. This allows focusing to occur, allowing us to see objects. So there's an area at the back of the eye, right at the back of the eyeball there, and that's called the retina. It's a very light sensitive area at the back of the eye. So when light is coming in, it's going to refract through that lens, that convex lens, and then it's going to focus there on the back of the eye, which is called the retina. All right, then the image we see is formed on the retina. All right, and that brings us to our next part of our lesson, which is vision problems. So the first one we'll look at is being nearsighted. So when someone is nearsighted, they have trouble seeing distant objects. All right, so people that are nearsighted, they have eyes that are too long. So the image is forming in front of the retina instead of on the retina. So a concave lens is placed in front of a nearsighted eye, and that will move the image back so that it will form on the retina. All right, so if you notice in this first image, light reflected from a distant object, it's landing right in front of the retina. All right, so the image is forming in front of the retina. To fix that, we're using this lens here, concave lens, and that will direct the light rays onto the retina. All right, so this eyeball here that we're looking at, it is a longer shape. It has a longer shape than the normal eye, and that's what's causing the image to fall short of the retina. All right, and then to correct it, it is corrected with a concave lens. Next, we are looking at being farsighted. So when people are farsighted, they have trouble seeing objects that are close to them. It is easier for them to see objects that are farther away. So the problem is that the eyeball or the eye is too short this time. So the image has not formed by the time the light reaches the retina, right? So if we see here, the image is falling behind the retina, okay? And that's because the eye has a shorter shape than the normal eye. So to fix this problem, a convex lens is placed in front of the farsighted eye, which helps bend the light rays so that the image will appear right on the retina. All right, so again, this is a convex lens that has been used to correct farsightedness. All right, and now the image will fall right on the retina. Okay, so this part or this lesson on topic 4, we'll be looking at more of the eye as well as comparing the eye and the camera. So there's many similarities between the human eye and the camera. We're able to see objects when light from an object focuses on the retina. So our retina is here at the very back of the eyeball. In a camera, the lens refracts the light, and then it's the film that senses the light. All right, so we have the film back here, and the lens is right here for the camera. Other things to know with the human eyeball, we have the iris shown here. We have these ciliary muscles shown there. We'll take a look at this video, and then we'll go over some more parts of the eye as well. So next, it is putting it in focus. So in a camera, if an object moves closer to the film, the lens has to move farther from the film to keep the image in focus. In the human eye, we have those ciliary muscles that will change the shape of the lens. All right, just going back here, there's the ciliary muscles, and this here was the lens. So the ciliary muscles will change the shape of the lens. So if the object comes closer, the ciliary muscles make the lens bulge in the middle, and this will keep the object in focus on the retina without having to stretch the eyeball itself. All right, accommodation is the term used for the process of changing the shape of the lens to adjust for different object distances. As people get older, the lens becomes more stiff, and therefore the lens loses its ability to change shape. The lens doesn't get thick enough to focus on close objects, and that's why people, as they age, they have to wear convex lenses as reading glasses, for example. All right, next is putting it in focus. So for the eye, there's the point called the near point. This is the shortest distance at which an object is in focus. And then there's a point called the far point. This is the longest distance at which an object is in focus. So for the average adult human eye, the near point is about 25 centimeters away. Babies, on the other hand, they can focus on objects only about 7 centimeters away. And then the far point is said to be infinity, because a person with normal vision, they can see the stars, and those are thousands of light years away. All right, but the average adult human eye, the near point is about 25 centimeters away. All right, that's the shortest distance at which an object is in focus. All right, this image is just showing a baby, and the caption there is that most babies can focus easily on objects that are very close. All right, then we're going to compare that to the camera. So bringing in the light, now we're looking at the camera. If there's a cloud covering the sun while you're taking a picture, the amount of light that's reaching the film decreases. So if the light is too dim, the film is not going to receive enough light to record the image clearly. The camera has a diaphragm and shutter, and those can be adjusted to allow the correct amount of light to reach the film. So the diaphragm, that's the device that controls the aperture. That aperture is the opening. Okay, so the diaphragm is the device that controls the aperture of a lens or optical system. The shutter is the device that limits the passage of light. So the aperture, which was the opening, the aperture, which is the opening in the diaphragm, it can let more light into the camera by being opened wider, and then the shutter can let in more light by staying open longer. So if we just look at an image, here we have the diaphragm, and inside the diaphragm is that aperture. All right, so a small aperture for photographing a bright scene, and then here again we have the diaphragm, and now the aperture is opened much more. So we have a larger aperture for photographing a dimly lit scene. Okay, so it's the diaphragm that is controlling the amount of light that enters a camera, and that opening inside is called the aperture. All right, next we're comparing bringing in the light with the human eye. So in the human eye, there is the iris. This is the iris. It's the colored portion of the eye. So it's the colored ring. That is going to work like the diaphragm of a camera. So if the light is dim, the iris increases the size of the eye's opening to let in more light. And the opening here is called the pupil. So the pupil is the opening in the eye. It appears as the dark center of the eye. So compare that to the camera. The camera had the diaphragm and the aperture. The human eye has the iris and the pupil. Okay, so bringing in the light, the human eye, there is something called the iris reflex. This is the natural adjustment in the size of the pupils. So for example, when it's bright, the iris reflex will quickly shrink the size of the pupils, so less light enters the eyes, and these adjustments are made so that the eyes feel comfortable again. All right, and then the opposite would happen if it's dark. Okay, so seeing the image next. So when we're talking about a camera, at the back of the camera is the film. The image is focused onto that light-sensitive material, the film. The light energy will cause chemical changes in the film to record the image. So that's what happens in the camera. In the human eye, it's the retina at the back of the eyeball, which senses the light. And there are cells in the retina that produce small electrical impulses. Those will travel from the retina to the brain through the optic nerve. I think I have an image right here. There's the optic nerve. So at the very back of the eyeball, that is the retina. And then this is the optic nerve, which will travel to the brain. There is a blind spot. This is the point where the optic nerve enters the retina. It doesn't have any light sensing cells. So there's a little experiment we can do here to find your blind spot. So basically, you can hold your laptop, or if you're looking at the image in the textbook, You just hold it at arm's length. You're going to cover your right eye with your hand, and you're going to stare at the X, and you're going to slowly move the book or your screen toward yourself, and that dot should disappear, and then it'll reappear as its image moves onto your blind spot and then off again. So you can try that right now. All right, so seeing the image in the human eye, there are layers of tissue that hold the different parts together. So there's these fluids, they're called humors, that keep the eye from collapsing. So if you look at this image here, there's a vitreous humor. Okay, this area here, it's all filled with fluid. It keeps the eye from collapsing. And there's another fluid-filled area here. It's a much smaller area that is called the aqueous humor. Okay, so these humors, they are important also because they also help refract the light that enters the eye. All right, so they have two functions, to keep the eye from collapsing and to help refract the light that enters the eye. Okay, and then other parts we've already talked about. We've already talked about the retina. Here's the optic nerve. This would be the blind spot. Ciliary muscles, which are connected to the lens. They'll control the shape of the lens. The pupil is here. The iris is here. That's the colored part of the eye. And then the outer covering of the eye, that's called the cornea. All right, a couple more videos to watch here, and then we will stop the lesson for today.